am I out of sync with those values? And how is the busy um, eroded my time for the strategic?
Today, I have visiting artisan Sarah Kotlinski. Let's see how innovation meets artistry as we forge something extraordinary together.
You are listening to the Innovation Forge, the #1 podcast on adaptive enrollment management, exploring the data, marketing, and strategy that fuels higher education. Here's your host, David Dysart.
Hello, Guilders, and welcome to another episode of the Innovation Forge. I am your host, David Dysart, and I'm thrilled you're joining me on this journey into the innovative world of higher education and adaptive enrollment management. What if joy wasn't just a feeling, but a leadership strategy? In today's episode, I'm joined by Sarah Kotlinski, Director of Enrollment Systems and Analytics at Gettysburg College, to explore what happens when you build systems, you build communities, and you even build careers with intention and humanity at the core. With over 25 years at Gettysburg and 36 years in enrollment, Sarah has become a guiding force in the Slate community, not just for her technical skills, but for the culture of generosity and mentorship she's helped foster. We talk about why joy is a habit is more than just a newsletter title, how she launched a training movement that now spans over 700 professionals, why designing tech systems should start with empathy, not efficiency, and how she's thinking about legacy, both personal and professional. Whether you're a new Slate user, a higher ed veteran, or just someone trying to stay aligned with your values at work, this conversation will give you both inspiration and tactical insight. Let's see how joy and community take shape today. Sarah Kotlinski has been the Director of Enrollment Systems and Analytics at Gettysburg College since July 2024, and she's been at Gettysburg for over 25 years and in enrollment for 36. Sarah loves coffee, reading, and watching both Steelers and West Virginia football. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on the show today.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for coming on the episode. I really appreciate your accommodating in your busy schedule, hopping on a podcast.
Absolutely.
Before we started recording, though, you did mention your love for fall decorating. Can you tell me and the audience a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I love this time of year that the days are a little cooler and the humidity is dropping. And because of that, I just get really excited to celebrate all the things that go with fall, such as pumpkin picking and going on all of the fall festival kinds of things with my husband. And because of that, over the years, we have collected lots and lots of fall decorations. So my porch is decked out with mums and pumpkins. I've got little paper mache jack-o'-lanterns all over the place. Today, I was working on putting on all the timer candles. So at 6 p.m. in the evening, all of a sudden there's magical light all over my house. I like making cozy spaces.
I definitely need to get the timer situation set up here. I think that would just be so much easier than like, oh, okay, it's 5 o'clock. I have to like go turn stuff
Oh,
on.
100%. It is totally the way to do it because every time they come on, it feels like a little tiny gift to yourself.
Totally. Do you have like a date where like, okay, now it's fall, now it's winter? What is your kind of schedule?
Yeah, so we were a little late this year. I typically like to do that on Labor Day weekend, but we had some family commitments, so I'm a little late getting all the fall things done this year. For Christmas, all of the winter things, I try to get out before Thanksgiving so that when my son comes home from college, there's not boxes and totes and bins of stuff everywhere, and he can just enjoy being home.
It's a good timeline. I like it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd love to get to know your work in the community a bit more. I mean, Slate's definitely a community that is known for its presence and its inviting nature, but I think you definitely take that to a whole other level. You've been such a visible leader, I think, in the Slate community for a long time, but now even more, I guess, official with like the ambassador. What originally drew you into that role, and what do you think makes the Slate community so special?
Yeah. So, as far as what drew me, it's actually my former dean of admission, who had been at Gettysburg for over 42 years, retired. And her retirement got me thinking about the concept of legacy and what did I want to leave to my profession. And so I decided that I had a fair amount of knowledge. I wanted to share it. And I think that I did that in a lot of non-official ways through just kind of ad hoc mentoring of people and working through LinkedIn. And then I realized that I'm really doing all this ambassador work already. And so I thought, I'm going to go ahead and submit an application and maybe make it a little bit more official. And they said yes. And I have loved that role so very much.
That's
As
awesome.
far Oh, I'm sorry. I was
No,
just
no,
going to say
no.
the second part of your question, what makes the Slate community so special? I think that in many other industries, if you have great systems knowledge, you want to hoard that and not share it because you don't want somebody else to have a competitive advantage. But within the Slate community, I just think when one of us shares our knowledge, we all get better, and there's this collaborative spirit. I just got back from NACAC, as you know, and the theme this year was United We Rise. And I know that was NACAC's theme, but I honestly think it's perfect for the Slate community as well.
No, I love that. I've been in a lot of different systems in and out of higher education. I've never seen anything even remotely like the Slate community. So
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
so glad that we have amazing shepherds like yourself helping move our community and our industry forward. I mean, talking about that, even you just launched the training user group not too long ago. Why did you see a need for that space, and how has it grown since you even started it?
Sure. Yeah. So after my former dean of admission retired, we did some restructuring of our office and leadership roles and created a position that was a director specifically for enrollment systems and analytics. And in that newly created role, I wanted to really take advantage of that opportunity to lift up the other users in my institution and really help them grow in their knowledge of Slate. And so I was thinking a lot about training and about best practices for helping share that knowledge. Started talking about it a little bit on LinkedIn, and people said, "Oh, yeah, let's get together and have a little conversation." And so we did, and it was overwhelming to me, the appetite for this. And I think the key there is that if you become a Slate captain, you do so because your technical skill is recognized and elevated. And in most cases, along with that captaincy comes the staff training role, but technical skill and pedagogical chops don't necessarily go hand in hand. And so a lot of people feel like I'm really good at doing this. I'm not so good at teaching it. And so after I had this little ad hoc meeting, people said, "Oh, yeah, we should do this more often." I thought, there is a space for this already. So I pitched the idea to Technolutions and they thought it was a good idea. So the training group started in February of 2025. So we'll hit our 5 year, or excuse me, our 8 month anniversary. Where did 5 years come from? Our 8 month anniversary later this week. And as of this morning, there were 729 members. So yeah, it's grown phenomenally well. And I think that in addition to that collaborative spirit and that mentorship that we see all throughout the Slate community, even really experienced users are finding value in the conversations and learning things. I know I am learning an awful lot from the other members. I don't see myself as an expert on training at all, just as somebody that saw that need and kind of facilitated a space for that to happen.
I love that. I think I was actually on that initial like informal one, and there
I
was definitely there
Yeah, I
was
think you were.
special energy here. Like, oh, okay, yeah, this is definitely something. So, deeply appreciative from myself and the entire Slate community. I mean, obviously, at least 700 people for you starting that up. It's been wonderful. You've had such great speakers on as well, sharing their knowledge to the community. As someone who is trying to spin up training myself, that Venn diagram overlap of technical and pedagogy is definitely not always a perfect circle. So thank you for the work you're doing there.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then also, so I saw that first on LinkedIn. And another thing that I've seen on LinkedIn is your Slate Feature Friday, which everyone should go follow you on LinkedIn and Substack, but we'll get to that later. Yeah, the
Okay.
Slate Feature Friday. Now, these breakdowns have started becoming like a go-to resource for a lot of folks. What inspired you to start those, and how do you choose what to highlight each week?
Yeah, it actually started as just a way to do bite-sized training for my staff. Remember, I said I was trying to figure out what worked from a training perspective. I happened to overhear a more senior member of my staff showing somebody how to copy a parent on an email in Slate, and it was a very cumbersome and convoluted process. And I thought to myself, but there's the related address book, it's right there. And so I wanted to share that with my whole staff. And I thought, we all get so much email and we're just inundated with a tide of things all the time. And I thought that it would be really easy for that to get overlooked. So I thought, oh, I'll spin up this kitschy little graphic. And it happened to be a Friday. So I thought, oh, it's Late Feature Friday. And then because I had done that, the next Friday I had to come up with another one. And one of my staff said, you should share these on LinkedIn. And it has just really kind of taken off from there. I did take a break for the summer and came back with a fresh perspective for this season. So I don't necessarily think that they are end user focused any longer. They're really mostly more for Slate captains and sort of combining my training role with that Slate Feature Friday. As far as how I come up with the ideas, they're typically about something that's front and center in my mind. So when I was at NACAC this last week, I presented with some other folks on slate.org. So the last two have been on slate.org, and probably we'll move on to something else for this Friday. But I keep thinking I would love to have them scheduled out a couple weeks in advance, and I quite honestly just haven't gotten to that point yet. The other thing that I will say that I just actually find quite humorous is that there are times when I have an idea that I just think, this is amazing, and people are going to really, really love this one, and it gets zero traction. And then times when it's Thursday night and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I've made a commitment. I'm going to do this every Friday. I'm not breaking that commitment, so I have to find something. Those are often the ones that people really love. So I don't know, go figure, but it's a lot of fun to do.
The joy definitely is something that is seen throughout the graphics and the trainings and just the detail that you go into and keeping it accessible but informative. So very awesome to hear. And yeah, I have also noticed it's very hit or miss. Like, oh, this is like the coolest late thing in the world, crickets. And then just some
Mhm.
random simple thing, and it's like, this is 5 times the views I've had on anything I've ever done on LinkedIn. And it's like the silly one-off thing that like just needed to post something, so you post it.
Yeah.
So if you
Yep,
crack
for
that
sure.
code, let me know. I deeply need to know.
Well, okay, and vice versa, because if you have any insights, I'd love to hear them.
I think after a year, I have no insights, and if I was going to naturally stumble upon them, I think it would have happened already. But fingers crossed, maybe. But speaking of joy, you have
Mhm.
a new newsletter. The title is Joy is a Habit. It's such a powerful phrase. What does it mean to you personally, and how do you try to practice that in your day-to-day work?
Yeah. So there's actually a little bit of a backstory to that, and it goes back probably a decade ago. A casual conversation with a high school friend, and I said, "Oh, I want to be a joyful old lady someday." And he looked at me and said, "Well, you better start now."
Woo!
And I thought, wow, okay, convicted, called out, absolutely. But it was such a brilliant and succinct statement, and it really stayed with me. And so for several years, I really spent a lot of time exploring what that looked like in my personal life and taking photographs of little moments and appreciating them and posting them with the hashtag joy as a habit, just as a way to kind of hold myself accountable to growing into that space. And then I eventually slowed down with that because I think it became part of my nature to be grateful and to be appreciative and to notice things. But in conjunction with this concept of legacy, I started to think about the fact that I'm very intentional about being joyful and about creating space for that in my personal life. But what percentage of our waking time do we spend at work? A lot. And if that embrace of joy is not coming into my work life, then I'm being inauthentic because this is a value that I espouse and that matters to me. But also, I mean, work should be fun, right? Like I'm often in the office at my desk at 6:30 or 7 in the morning, literally because I'm so excited about whatever cool thing I get to build that day. And so it was really important to me to find a way, as I was thinking about legacy, to communicate that philosophy that is so deeply held and so close to my heart. And so, um, then at the same time, I think something that we don't talk about in a work context very often. So that's the story about how that came to be. And then you asked about how I operationalize that. And there are several things that I think make a difference for me about being joyful at work. And one is just that same concept of intentionality and gratitude and noticing little moments, whether it's lifting up a colleague for something that they did that really made a difference to me, whether it's my little routine of getting to the office and having my coffee and turning on all the candles in my office and just creating a physical space that feels welcoming. But it also means that I've done some really deep work about what are my values and what are my principles in the workplace, and making sure that the work I'm doing is in alignment with those. That is an absolute joy factory. And if I start to notice that that sense of joy is lacking, that's typically the first place I look. Like, where am I out of sync with those values, and how is the busy um eroded my time for the strategic? And that's what it needs. When I address that drift, then the joy returns.
I love that. I think that mindful joy is something I've even started picking up on my son's books. Of just like, it's easy to you're just going, 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 but it's when you stop and you appreciate something that is beautiful that you see every day that you can start living a life full of joy. So I love that you're not only guiding us on those kind of technical concepts, but also just that mindful joy that we can also bring to our lives, I think is a really important aspect that, I mean, we're not getting that in other like how-to tips and stuff randomly on LinkedIn. So I appreciate that aspect of it as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Another thing that I've noticed in the newsletter is you talk about creating systems that actually serve people, not the other way around. Can you share a little bit, maybe an example where you've seen a system that either empowers or frustrates the people that it's supposed to support?
Absolutely. I could give you so many examples. A couple that come to mind are things that we've built here at Gettysburg that I feel really proud of. One of the things that Technolutions rolled out last spring was AI dashboards. And the first use case that we built for at Gettysburg was a dashboard at the organizational level, so the high school level, right? That looks through all of our history of interactions with that school, all of the notes about the visits and college nights, looks at the data about who has inquired and who has applied and what kind of criteria or what kind of characteristics do they have, and presents that in a narrative form that's really easily digestible for non-data analysts. So when my staff is on the road now, in their hotel room in the evening, they can pull up each school they'll be visiting the next day, run the AI dashboard, and have a real contextual sense of what they're walking into, what kinds of conversations they might have, what to expect. That system is pulling all this data from all these disparate sources, but it's serving up for them in a way that, they're not reading a multi-line, multi-column report and trying to figure out like what one little number is the thing that makes a difference. It's natural language, and it's saying, here's the kind of interactions that we've had. And so they really like that sense of um, being informed. And to be honest, it's kind of funny because I feel like we've come full circle in some ways. I might have mentioned that I've done this work for a long, long time, way before any kind of AI, way before CRMs. And once upon a time, when we would go out to do high school visits, we would take manila folders with us. And you'd get out of the visit and you'd sit in the parking lot and you'd write a couple notes about how the visit went that year. But then the next year, you had all of that history really at your fingertips. And so I feel like in some ways I've come full circle to build that again. Um, Another example is that I think if you look at your pool at any one moment, there are students who are very, very likely to enroll at your institution if you don't do anything really egregious to mess it up. That group is probably a little smaller every year, but there is that population. And then there's a group of people that, they're just never coming. They were very casual inquirers. They're, for whatever reason, you didn't have what they're looking for. But the biggest group are those kind of middle folks that maybe they're interested and maybe they're not. And it's really hard to identify on any day, like who needs to be communicated with today, who needs personal outreach today. And so I think that systems are really getting very good at being able to serve up who those contact points should be, and maybe even suggesting some contact ideas. That's exciting to me to see that those systems are really surfacing places for human connection. And I would even take it a step further than that and say that in a truly ideal world, or a truly ideal ecosystem, the systems themselves will sort of fade into the background. They'll just be so intuitive that the work that you do will be all about connecting with people, and the systems will just be kind of like brushing your teeth, something that is such a part of what you do every day. But if I asked you, what did you do to get ready for work this morning? I bet you're not going to tell me that you brushed your teeth, right? Because it is such a part of your every day to day. And so that's my goal for systems, to be that transparent.
I love that. I'm creating some trainings right now, and that North Star is very similar in the vein of like, there is data and there's understanding, and then creating and empowering that bridge in between the two.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think systems and technology are going to continue automatically bridging that. I don't know where exactly on that 0 to 100% we are yet.
Yeah.
So if you ever want to come back and do a training, I would love to have you back on the podcast.
Please let me know. I'd love to do that.
Awesome. So changing gears a little bit
Mm-hmm.
with leadership. You've worked in higher ed for over 35 years, uh, through a lot of changes, as you said. What's the kind of some of the biggest lessons you learned about leading in that constantly shifting environment?
Yeah. Yeah. So a phrase that I think is really helpful to me is hold your plans lightly and hold your values tightly. You don't know from day to day. I mean, any one of us could get up and read the news in the morning and find our actual work has been significantly upended, right? In a way that we maybe weren't planning for, didn't anticipate, and yet it is the actuality of what we need to address in that moment. So I think that although planning is important, and I am a probably an over planner. I also think that being a good leader means being able to be flexible in the moment. And at the same time, I think we've already talked about the fact that I'm a very values-based individual. No matter what the change is, holding those values constant is a bit of stability and an anchor in a time of turmoil. The other thing that I would say for leaders that I think is really important in times of change is to have done the work to have self-mastery enough that you can separate your emotions from your response, and that you can compartmentalize when necessary so that you can experience your own emotions in a safe place, maybe away from the office. I don't advocate not feeling your emotions or not acknowledging them, but in the workplace, it might be really important for you to be able to put those aside and listen to your team and listen deeply to how they're being affected by change and ask questions of them. And so I think that concept of self-mastery is one that I know I am continually growing with and growing into. I don't think it's something that you ever arrive. I mean, you're never like, check, that's done. I've got this under control. But I think it's something that we do continually get better at because life keeps giving us opportunities to practice.
Life does love giving us opportunities. And it can be hard because I mean I think a lot of us are in admissions because we're very passionate about the work that we're doing, and then we do very frequently get upended, especially lately. And it can everything that we do is so closely and intrinsically tied with how we view ourselves, how we view our work, the impact that we're able to make for students. It can be very difficult pulling that apart and taking the emotion out of what's happening. I think that is a great goal that has always seemed to be moving a little bit further away, but we are always striving to get better at. So I really like
Yeah,
that answer. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Yeah. And from your perspective, how
Mhm.
has the Slate community shaped the way enrollment and analytics professionals actually collaborate and are able to innovate in the space?
Yeah, so I think that quite honestly, Technolutions has been such a thought leader in the concept of shared and engaging spaces. I mean, they completely revamped the whole community space a couple years ago and had the specific intent of creating this collaborative space. And I know there was a little bit of pushback. I think when that first happened, people, wait, what do you mean I can't just submit a service desk request? Why do I have to take it to the community first? But because they've done that, we have this environment where we can co-author ideas together. And I have four overarching kind of themes for my year this year. The third theme is think synergistically. And by that, I mean both having additive and amplifying effects to things. So as a sidebar, when I say additive and amplifying, I mean that both all the pieces of my tech stack should be lifting other parts up. So I'm constantly looking for places to build those integrations. But also, when I think of the amplification idea, when I work with somebody in the Slate community and we're working on a problem together, I bring some ideas to the table. They bring some ideas to the table. And then as we kind of talk back and forth, what emerges is so much better and so much more than either one of us would have done on our own. So I think that that is the impact of having that collaborative and shared learning space together.
I love it. There's a podcast that I listen to, and their kind of catchphrase is none of us are as smart as all of us. And I think that really resonates with the community of when we have the sounding board of all these amazing people who bring so many different experiences and backgrounds and technical skill sets into the space that we are able to really create tools, processes, and a system that we just wouldn't have created otherwise. So I love that.
So I want to hear when we get done talking, I want to hear about that podcast because I love that phrase so much. That's exactly what I'm trying to get at when I talk about the Slate community.
It's one of the public. Oh yeah, I'll have to cut this. Public media. It's like the marketplace. I don't remember which one of the like 7 podcasts they have that it is, but I'll definitely send it to you, and I'll just add it to the notes too.
Perfect. Sounds great.
Not being paid, not an advertisement, just podcasts. I listen to so many podcasts. Yeah. But so for the newcomers, maybe
Mhm.
they're just getting started with Slate or just new to higher education in general. What's some advice that you would give them about finding their footing and their community?
Yeah. A couple things. First of all, I mean, this on the one hand feels like it ought to go without saying, except that it is easier to say than do. So I do want to highlight that. And that is that asking questions is absolutely the best way to learn. And I think that it's easy as a newcomer in a space that feels really well populated with bright folks to feel like, oh, it's hard to ask these newbie questions. But that's how you learn. And every single person in those spaces that you are looking up to and thinking, oh my goodness, they just know so much, was a newcomer once upon a time as well. Um, Before Slate Summit this year, I saw Karen Enty from Technolutions at another mini conference, and she gave me a pin that had a goldfish wearing a strap-on shark fin and saying, we're all just goldfish trying to swim with the sharks. And I was like, for anybody who doesn't know this, sharks are Technolutions theme animals, spirit animals. So in case you're wondering why you would want to swim with sharks, that would be why. But I think that, I mean, we've all got a little bit of imposter syndrome, and it's okay to just ask those questions. And as far as finding their footing, this is a great segue. I hope it's okay if I talk about the other new user space now, but something that Technolutions has just released. So it was the week before NACAC, they or actually the week of NACAC, that Monday was the first day that they went live with this. But within the Slate community, there is now something that is literally called the new user space. And it is populated with a number of Technolutions staffers and 3 people that Technolutions reached out to and said, would you consider being a new user mentor? And if there's ever a place that's really designed for asking those absolute brand new, I don't really know what I'm doing and I feel nervous questions, it is that space. And so anybody that's new to Slate, I would really welcome you to come and join us there. You'll find that anything that you want to ask is fair game.
I love. I am very glad that they tapped you as one of those roles, and I'm glad that there is a more formal place. I feel like you kind of saw some divisions and like, okay, if I have like a super technical question, maybe I go to the Slack channel. If I have a more general question, maybe I go to the Facebook group. I like that it's starting to segment itself into a more natural space. So like, oh, okay, I have a newer type question, and I have the space of that are just people that are going to have those questions. I don't have to feel self-conscious about asking what in my mind is probably a silly question, but it's not. But you just kind of feel weird. At least I do. I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I
Well,
love that there's that.
I think you can speak for everybody because I think that is a normal part of being human is to feel uncertain in that way.
Well, yay. I mean, well, I'm sorry everyone else was like this. It's a mess. But yeah. Um, but thank you so much for those insights and all of the service and all the work that you do with the Slate community. I'm so glad that we could kind of share and have that conversation with the audience. While you're here, though, I'd love to get your thoughts on another question for our segment, Molten Metrics. What data are you collecting or using that maybe a lot of people aren't utilizing. It's that best kept secret in higher education.
Oh, well, gosh, if I had a magic bullet, that would um but no, I think that my answer to that is not that I'm collecting anything particularly innovative, but just that we're trying to leverage information that's sort of hidden in plain sight. And so your prospective students vote with their they vote with their feet, right? In terms of where do they come visit, and they vote with their mouse in terms of where do they click, or their finger as far as where do they tap on their smartphone. And that behavioral data is a really rich repository that tells you kind of where they are in any moment. So figuring out how to operationalize that is a big piece that I think we're working on. We're still working on. We're far from expert at that. The other thing is that those same kinds of signals exist in other systems. So, for example, Gettysburg uses Campus ESP for parent communications. And every night, Campus ESP tells us these are the parents who've been most engaged recently. And they give us kind of a promoter score of, gosh, these are the folks that we feel like are really involved in their students' Gettysburg journey at the moment. So we don't want to leave that in Campus ESP. We want to bring that in and combine it with that Slate behavioral data, because together they give us a more crystallized lens of where the family is. And so that would be my molten metrics suggestion: is take what you've already got and think creatively about how to combine it in new ways.
Yeah, I love that. And the family aspect also is easy to overlook. Again,
Mhm.
I can't name check the two podcasts. I remember listening to recently. One of them was talking about a parent portal. I'm just like, oh yeah, you're kind of starting to see the trends of parents becoming more engaged in a digital Slate portal. But also there
Mhm.
was one that was like a purchase catalog, and like again, the folks that were likely to yield, you were seeing the parents actively engaging in this kind of emailed virtual catalog, buying the sweaters, buying their shirts for their kids, for themselves. And it's just like, oh, okay, we're getting these really interesting, nuanced data that we can use to
Yeah.
inform we understand students and engage with them.
And
But
and absolutely, I mean, we know that families are a significant part of the journey, right? And my son is a senior, and I think about, on the one hand, our family's experience with his college search was 4 years ago, and it feels like could be 4 centuries ago because things have changed so much. I don't know how relevant it is, but what I do know is how much it impacted my entire family, and how much we put our time and energy and financial resources into supporting him in making the best decision that he could make.
yeah, I mean, I think again, all of the like surveys and whatnot, that I mean, there's always been that strong trend of parents becoming more involved in the process as it gets more expensive, as it just the shift in kind of the parent student dynamics change. And of course, the COVID pandemic vastly accelerated that.
Oh, it did.
For Yeah, we don't have a whole another hour to talk about that, but if that's a lot of data that if you're not necessarily tracking or ingesting or looking at in a way to help inform your understanding of the student, engagement of the student, that's a big missed opportunity. Um,
Absolutely. Yep.
Huge shout out to all of that really interesting behavioral contextual information that you either have or can start getting.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but of course, layer that on with everything else you're doing. So
Well, there's that.
yeah. But so many great takeaways there in that segment and previous questions. Thank you for sharing that with us. Before we wrap up, though, every artisan leaves their mark. In the Smith signature, I'll ask you a few quick questions that you can kind of stamp your personal hallmark on today's conversation.
Okay. Sounds great.
So, what's one tool, digital or otherwise, that you rely on daily to keep your work running smoothly?
Coffee.
Best
Okay. Actually, that was a
answer.
little bit of a joke, although
No,
that's
best answer
actually
right
true.
now.
Yeah, that's actually true. But no, honestly, it's really an AI assistant with which I've built quite a relationship that knows me and knows the work that I'm doing and knows my intent to be aligned with my values, and helps me assess on a regular basis if I'm still doing that and still behaving in those ways.
I love that. That's a really interesting. Again, don't have time to pick through that, but that's a really interesting. I love that you're able to craft the agent to be so in line with your values and
Mhm.
keep you on that
Yeah,
path. That's really interesting. Maybe there's a Joy newsletter at some point in the near future where you can dive into that. Maybe. I don't
I need a topic for November, so
know.
you never know.
So that's a great coffee and AI. There we go. That's all we need moving forward.
That's all we need. All we need.
Yeah,
Coffee first, though.
definitely. And then more coffee when you can't get the AI to do exactly what you want.
But yeah.
But what's a recent trend, tech, or practice that you think will shape the future of higher ed and admissions?
Yeah, well, and again, I mean, the obvious answer here again is AI, and particularly in admissions, I'm thinking of this trend of AI-driven hyper personalization. We are on the cusp of that becoming standard practice. I think that it's really important to do it in an ethical way, and I think that will transform the way we work.
Definitely, I love that. There's a lot coming
Hmm.
in that entire domain. Very excited to see how that develops. And like you said, keeping it on ethical rails is also going to be a really important aspect of that. That probably will have to be fought for on a recurring basis, would be my guess.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you were starting your career today, what's one advice that you would give to your younger self?
I would say be generous, be brave, and be bold.
I love that. That's good advice.
Thank you.
Yeah. And what's one project, goal, or aspiration that you have on the block to work on?
Yeah, so I actually hired a student research assistant this year who
Oh,
I adore. He's amazing. And together we are building out a really robust data set about colleges and universities throughout the United States, with the
oh,
plan to use that information in conjunction with National Student Clearinghouse data to identify patterns and trends between what we know about our accepted students who choose other institutions and the kinds of institutions that they choose.
I love that. That is, I keep I'm on the cusp at multiple institutions now. Like, give me the National Student Clearinghouse data. I want to know where we're going and start building those kind of contextual profiles or persona, whatever you want to call them, to see like where we're losing them and how we can be more proactive and engaging with these
Yes,
students, communicating not in a way that again is ethical and communicate to them why we are the best choice for them if that is the case. Um,
absolutely. Or to maybe identify areas where we have things that we can address too. So,
mhm. And
absolutely.
that, yeah, there's so much that we can work on ourselves. It's always
Always,
easier to
always.
shift that lens. So,
All a work in progress.
yeah. No, that I am very excited to see how that develops. And again, synergy with the work I would love to be doing. So I think that that would be a huge advancement if you decide to share that publicly. I don't know. I don't know what the plan for that is. But would love to see that as it develops.
Thank you.
Um, and then if listeners wanted to connect with you about any of the many things you talked about today, where is the best place for them to message you or find you? I'll be sure to add these to the notes of the show.
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, honestly, the very best place is LinkedIn. And you'll have that link available for people. Also, to my knowledge, the only Sarah Kotlinski on LinkedIn. So I have the advantage of having a fairly unusual name. So I'm not hard to find. You can absolutely email me as well. But I will tell you, you know, you have people that say that they are team inbox zero.
Mm.
I personally am team inbox crazy. So if you ever email me and I don't get back to you, please don't be offended. Just reach out on LinkedIn because that's definitely the place that is more likely to get my attention quickly.
It is definitely easier to have a separate inbox or message stream that is dedicated to these kinds of conversations that's not being mixed into the, hey, can you do this real quick? Like, oh,
Yeah.
yes, that's going to take 7 hours. Let me do that real quick. And then you kind of get lost in the noise of that inbox. So, and
Yeah.
also just follow Sarah on LinkedIn. I think you are one of my favorite follows easily. So I think
You. Oh, what a nice thing
definitely,
to say.
well, thank you for being so wonderful on LinkedIn. But I love that we are starting to see more of a Slate presence on LinkedIn. And again, thank you for shepherding us in that direction.
Yeah.
You have great content, and
Yeah.
look forward to more people following you and learning from your work, whether it's on LinkedIn, the newsletter, the new user, the training group, the forums, all the different places.
The one other thing I would say there, honestly, is tell people to just follow Technolutions because most people who are doing Slate related content creation tag Technolutions. And so it's a great way to surface content that maybe you
Um,
wouldn't see otherwise.
Apparently, I need to start tagging Technolutions on my stuff then. I did not
Oh,
know that
please
was
do.
a thing people.
Absolutely. Because it makes it so much easier for people to find your stuff.
Oh, they're going to be so annoyed with me. I post too much. I can't do this to them. But this was such a wonderful conversation today. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your
Absolutely.
experience and insights with us. Your journey and expertise, of course, have given us a lot to think about. And thanks again for joining me on the show.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'd be happy to come back anytime.
I'm just going to have you as like a monthly correspondent. You can just keep us updated on all the awesome things.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Have
Thank you
a
so
have a
much.
wonderful. Now it's time for the blueprint breakdown, the part of the show where we sketch out the most powerful lessons from today's conversation and give you a clear set of takeaways you can bring back to your own work. Whether you're leading a team, building systems, or just trying to make your work a little more joyful, these 5 ideas are worth keeping close. Joy is a habit, not an accident. Sarah reminds us that joy at work doesn't just happen by chance. It takes intentionality in how we design our space, how we notice small moments, and how we stay aligned with our values. Mentorship doesn't have to be formal. Legacy isn't always about titles or positions. Sometimes it's about showing up consistently to support others, answer questions, and lead by example. Something Sarah has done in the Slate community long before she was named an ambassador. Pedagogy and technical skills equals real impact. Being a great systems builder isn't enough. Helping others grow with those systems is where real transformation happens. That's why the training user group resonated so deeply. Systems should serve people invisibly. The most effective technology fades into the background, freeing people to focus on connection, creativity, and strategy. The AI dashboard example from Gettysburg is a perfect case study. And as I spin up the ForgeWorks Grimoire, my 12-part training on the student journey, that's definitely going to be something I take with me as a guiding principle. Hold your plans lightly and hold your values tightly. Leadership in higher ed, or anywhere, means adapting to change without losing your anchor. Sarah's advice? Plan carefully, but don't cling too tightly. This was a wonderful conversation, and I am so glad that Sarah was able to share all of this with us. There were so many points where I did interrupt and bring up my own thoughts, and there were a million other times that I would have loved to have a conversation with Sarah about all these things. But definitely follow her on LinkedIn and her newsletter to continue following on everything from training to leadership to those technical skills. If you enjoyed today's episode, please grow the guild by rating and reviewing the Innovation Forge podcast or sharing it with a colleague who needs to hear about these creative crossovers in education. The best review or comment every month will get an ebook of my book, of course. Particularly great ones will also be featured on future episodes. Thank you so much for joining me in the workshop today. Remember to strike true, and let's forge something extraordinary together.
It's not just about the tools, it's how